Now, the problem is that, a lot of people, when it comes to goal setting, have goals and things that they want to achieve and accomplish in life, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with having goals, and matter of fact, I encourage you strongly to have them because goal setting has been powerful in my own life, and anyone who I've seen be successful as an entrepreneur or in group home specifically, they've been great at setting goals. Here's the problem. We're like trained to make ourselves feel better about goals by setting them lower. So let's say you decide that, in 2000, next year, whatever, it doesn't even matter what year, you decide you're going to have the best income of your life. You're going to make, if you make 50,000 a year now, you're doubling that. You're going to make 100,000. So most people would say to you, oh, that's kind of unrealistic to do that. You should probably set a goal of more like 60,000. Well, first of all, realistic is a stupid word, and realistic often comes from other people's doubts and limits that they place upon themselves. So let's throw that out of the way. But let's say you said 100,000. Then let's say you were getting closer to the end of the year and you were only at like 70, so you didn't think you were going to make it. What do most people do? They drop their goal. They'll say, you know what? My goal is more like 75. But that's a horrible way to approach things because you continue to lose confidence. Because let's say your original goal is 100,000. So you already know that you shorted your goal. And let's say you don't meet that shorted goal. Then you really feel bad because not only did you not make your goal, but you didn't make your shorted goal. So when the next year comes around, what's the point? Why would you even set goals? Why are you going to even bother to do it? Because last year you had a goal, you didn't meet it, and then you shorted it, and then you still didn't meet that. So instead of having this attitude of dropping down and saying, I'm going to make my goal easier to attain, to make myself feel better, do the opposite. Increase the input, increase the energy, increase the action that you take. So maybe if, you got to making an extra 20,000 by making 10 phone calls a day. Maybe you have to make 20, maybe you have to make 30, maybe you have to make 50. Increase that energy and action that you're willing to take, double things. Be willing to put in more time, more. That's what people get wrong. People get and Grant Cardone did a wonderful job displaying this in his book 10X. And, he realized this and really just put it into a book, but many people have known this for years. You don't drop your goals. You increase the input of what you're putting in. I know for myself, growing up as an athlete, like I never thought about dropping goals. It was always, the answer is always to work hard or find a way to get better more efficiently. So for you, when you think about your own life, and especially when it comes to these group homes, if you come out and you say, you know what, you want to make an extra $5,000 a month in income, that's a nice little income right there. But you can't approach this with an attitude where, well, if you're at 3,000, you're just going to be like, well, maybe my goal is actually 3,500. No, you have to approach it with the attitude of, okay, if your goal is 5,000 and, you have two homes and let's say both of them are smaller homes and they're both at about 60% occupancy. Well, that's what's keeping you from reaching your goal. So put more time and energy into getting that to 80% on both homes or even 100%. It's the energy, it's the input, it's the action. You have to put in more. It's in putting in more that you'll see an increase in the output. And when you actually stop and take a step back and think about that, that makes perfect sense. You put in more, you get out more. But that isn't what we do in reality. We want to stay the same. We want to hover around the same place and what makes us comfortable, and then just get more output magically from just doing that for a longer period of time. So most people would rather, if they operate at 60% of their best, they would rather continue to do that. And after 10 years of 60%, get out 80%. They'd rather that than instead of waiting, putting in 100% and getting out 100% and making that decision today. It's not, that's the thing that's sweet about it. You don't have to wait for somebody. You don't have to, spend your life with waiting for these external circumstances to all come together for you. You don't have to do that. When you take on this mindset of inputting more to reach your goals, it all comes down to you and what you're willing to do. But it is about that input. There is no way that so many people just are not capable of reaching their goals. It's just not possible. The reality is that we underestimate what it's going to take, and from a standpoint of our energy that we input. And then that also goes to figuring out the correct timeline, because when the reason this is the second thing we get wrong is because the timeline of how quick you can do something is really going to be decided by the energy you input, sometimes depending on the business, the capital that you have, and the people that you have around you. So labor, capital make a huge difference. A lot of people don't think about that. So when you think of your own life, if you said, someone came to me and they said they wanted to have 10 group homes in a year. Well, it's doable. It's not impossible. I wouldn't recommend it because that's a lot especially if you've never done it before. That's a lot going on. If you're coming from zero and you want to go from 0 to 10, but what it really will come down to, if you want to do that in a year, that's a pretty aggressive timeline. So I would ask right off the bat, okay, who do you have on your team? Do you have a good team? Do you have people ready to support you in doing this? If someone says no for that, I'm gonna question whether you're gonna be able to reach it. How much energy and time are you willing to put in? If that doesn't look extremely aggressive, like your goal, then it's not gonna happen. And then from a capital standpoint, we often help people here at Group Home Riches get their first group home going in for less than $2,000. But you're not gonna be able to do that if you want to go from 0 to 10. That's a lot of homes. You're gonna have to put in a substantial amount of money and take a substantial amount of risk to do that in 1 year. So if you're not willing to accept that, you can't get it all. You can't make a lot of money or make the most amount of money and take the least amount of risk. There has to be some form of risk in what you're doing. But that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to the time. It's going to come down to the energy that you put in. You get these two things right. You get that timeline right. You get that energy input right. And you're going to reach your goal exactly when you want to reach it. But most people get this wrong. And I fall into that. I often am very ambitious with my timeline. And I realized that for that timeline, I didn't realize how much time, energy, money was going to take in order to get to where I wanted to be. But I don't ever drop the goal. I either move the timeline back slightly, but then most of the time it's about putting in more energy, inputting more, and that will help me get there, and I know that will help you do the same.